Hi guys, I'm Jillian. I got assigned the word wall vocabulary strategy, and I just wanted to take some time to explain what it is and how you would use it in your classroom. And then I gave you an example of two kinds that you can use and kind of where you would go about using them in your classroom. So, first, there is an example of one in the topic of English, which I am planning on teaching. So a lot of the examples in my presentation are going to be about English. So just a heads up on that. But I thought this was a really good one explaining kind of different types of things you would see in a story. And you just kind of explain it, and it's kind of snapshots of some definitions of things that you're going to run into when you introduce some topics. So let's get started. All right, so what is this? And really, what is it trying to achieve? So, this specific strategy is a display of some specific vocab words that you're going to be going through in a unit, a set unit. So, this is normally used in elementary classes, but I have figured out a way that you can use it in a secondary kind of environment. So I was excited to try to incorporate more complex details into this. And really, it is known for elementary classes, but I see that it can be beneficial in a high school standpoint. So that is what I did for my example. And you want to use this because it really improves the way that students read, write, and talk about your subject. So it gives them deeper knowledge into the definitions and the key vocabulary words that you're going to be going through in a said unit. And this really improves the way that your student looks at what they're being taught. It's not just a surface level understanding of this terminology, they are getting the deeper meanings and how they incorporate this into the way that they analyze the information you are giving them. Okay, so this is kind of a basic way you should format a little post-it note. So you want to give the word and the definition, the way you use it in a sentence, or the kind of context that it's being given in your unit. You can draw a picture, it's not needed, it's just another way to add a creative outlet in this assignment or activity. And synonyms, you don't have to. It can be useful if it's in an English standpoint of reading a book so they can see different words that would mean around the same thing or are used with it. I just want to quickly highlight that the best way to use a word wall is to put it on your classroom wall and have it in sticky notes or printouts of slides, just a visual for them to see it while you are going through the unit. So you would ideally have this up the entirety of the unit so that they can see it and go back to it when needed. All right, so how do you set this up in your classroom? So you first want to introduce the idea of a word wall in your classroom. Tell the students why you think this will be important in the unit and how this is going to help them understand the information they are being given. So when you first put up your word wall, you're going to put the first terms up yourself. Kind of introduce the topic, what your expectations are. And so this could be tier 1 or introductory words. And then as the unit progresses, you introduce more of those key topics or key vocab words. And the way you go about this can be different for each classroom and what the unit is about. If it's more hands-on, you can have them do it. If it's more kind of teacher-led, you could put them on there. I will talk about different ways to use the classroom in the next slide. So I want to just start by saying this is a great opportunity to have class engagement and activities. Like I said, they can be used in different ways, so that's up to you. But the thing you really want to focus on is making sure that you accumulate your word wall gradually. You don't want to throw 10 or more words at them in a day, because that's just so much words for them to try to memorize and kind of understand. So you kind of want to do this gradually, a couple each day as the unit progresses. You can have more heavy ones at the beginning because they're introducing them, but because they're basically normally going to be the easier words or the words that are going to introduce a topic. But once you move along in the unit, you're going to want to make sure that they're evenly balanced every day so that they don't get overwhelmed with it. Okay, so here are some great examples of in-class activities you can use word walls with. So the first thing is just class discussions. Get them going about specific words you want them to understand before a reading, an experiment, a chapter, anything that you want them to know beforehand or while they're reading it. Because this is a great way for them to glance at your classroom wall and see that word and the definition and then get back to their reading real quick. They don't have to go to their computer and search the definition. So just class discussions at the beginning to kind of lay down what these are before they read, and then it's still going to be there if they forget. Guess and research. So there's another activity you can do where you put up some of the introduction words and you have them kind of guess what they think that it means in the context of your unit. And then you kind of talk about it, and this can get another class discussion going. You can also put them in groups for this. You can make it kind of a competition to see who kind of inferred. This is another great way to have them you making educated guesses and problem solving. So you can have that as one, and then if they don't quite get it, you can have them research it, and then they can understand it and they kind of explain their reasoning of why they think it's going to be important in the unit. Group discussions, you can put them into small groups and have them kind of talk about why, again, their guesses of why they think it's going to be important in the unit or how they're going to use them in this unit and in the topic that you have. And this just gets them kind of thinking about how they want to share their opinions with a small group of people. And then you can broaden it up, open it up to the class discussion, kind of see the different point of views that came from the groups. And then I like this one. This one's personally my favorite. Is you assign words to a student. So you assign a word to them, they research it, and then they put it on the board. And then you go around and you kind of just explain the research that has been involved. Now, this is great for English if you're going to start a new book that is set in a time that they're not used to, like the 1950s. You can use some of the slang that you are going to be finding in the book that they obviously aren't going to know, and you're going to have them research that and put it on the wall. And then you can stop while you're reading and kind of analyze the research that's been done and say, okay, now this word means this in this context of the sentence, so they aren't lost. And I think that's really a great way to use a word wall in a high school level. All right, and finally, I just want to show you two examples that I made myself. So the left one is a more basic one that you can use just to introduce words. Maybe when you're in the previous unit, just kind of start introducing these, put them on the wall, get them thinking about them, so that when you start the unit, you can then move to the right where it has the definitions. So a more basic one you could use in elementary with different words and the word levels is the left one. So you're just giving them words and kind of introducing them into their brain. And then you can move to the more complex one on the right, just using definitions, making sure that they know these key concepts of the unit that you're in. Again, this is English, so this is a reading standard of informative paper. So you're informing people, so you got to know what the evidence is and the topic that you're doing and what biases and the tone and stuff. So this is writing and reading. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of get your students' minds moving in the right direction of the topic that you're trying to do. Okay, so I just want to go over this real quick. This is when you think of a word wall, this is the most common example that will pop up. This is one that you would see in a elementary environment. This is spelling words, vocab words, verbs, nouns, adjectives, whatever you are going through in vocabulary at the moment. And it is normally in alphabetical order so that they can find the word they're looking for very easily. I chose to do it a different way because that is what I saw fit for my standard that I will be doing. Here's another example of a format that you can use. This one is math, specifically geometry. Now, this is kind of straying from a word wall into a word map, but it can still be used in the same way as a word wall. So you are seeing the different types of vocab words you would be using in a geometry chapter and kind of moving them into sections that are where they're going to be used and in which ways they're going to be used. So this can be another example of how you use a word wall on your classroom wall. Okay, and here is the last example I want to give you. This one is a history example. Now, word walls don't have to just be words. They can be events that happen, people, ideas. And this is a great example of that in a history standpoint because not only are they giving you people like Abraham Lincoln, but they're also giving you things that happen, like events that happened in the world and in history. So it doesn't just have to be words or vocab words, it can be events. And I think that's really important to highlight the different uses that you can use this for. It is a very adaptable vocab strategy and you can use it however you see fit. And I think the best way to use a word wall is as inspiration to then move on to what you think will be beneficial for your specific classroom. All right, guys, that is all I wanted to share with you. I really hope that I explained it well for you. And I hope that in your future classrooms, you will be using a word wall. Thank you.